I'm interviewing the leading candidates for governor about important issues facing Californians. I'm Sophia Bolag. I'm a state politics reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. Here are a few excerpts from my conversations with the candidates. To read more from my interviews and to see our complete voter guide, go to sfchronicle.com.
Healthcare is not a commodity. When you need it, when your child is ailing, you're going to get the healthcare. And by telling someone they don't have insurance, you're essentially telling them you can't afford to get the care. And so everyone will try to avoid going to get care if they can. And so if your child can get better by waiting, that's what you'll do. If you can get some over the counter medication to help, you'll do that. But if your child is ailing and needs to see a doctor or go to the hospital, you're going to go. And by the time you do that, the condition's gotten worse, and you're entering, as I say, the most expensive doors in the healthcare system, the emergency room doors. And so rather than wait till it's costing that family more than they can afford, even after they've expended everything they had in their piggy bank, it's the taxpayers who will pick up the cost. So rather than have healthcare done that way, we will do it early upfront and give people access to care. That means keeping them on Medi-Cal so they can see the pediatrician or their family doc or their OB when they need to, not when it's an emergency and now you're going in to the health system at the most expensive point. And that's the way we'll be able to reduce the cost overall as we continue to march towards universal coverage for all Californians. Instead of waiting till the punch arrived in the form of ICE agents in California, National Guard being deployed against their own neighbors, U.S. troops being stationed in California, the counterpunches, I see that coming, but before they come, I'm having my law enforcement leadership talk to federal law enforcement leadership saying, hey, before you descend on California, think about it, because you're going to start to intrude on what is our constitutional authority and responsibility. And let's not go there. And that's the counterpunch, is preventing that kind of action from occurring because the punch has landed. But in terms of would I have sued differently, or uh, once they're here, now you have to react to that, and the lawsuits are what help put the brakes on some of that illegality, but it's tough, and so you have to try to prevent that from occurring. Hard to speculate. I didn't see the actual circumstance, so uh, uh, please understand. I'm going to give you the best answer I can, but with the limited facts that you and I have. Mm-hmm. But what I will tell you is this: had we established the ground rules with federal ICE, with federal law enforcement before they landed, before they started deploying, and said, "Don't make us do blue on blue, because if you overstep your jurisdiction, we have a right to arrest, detain, prosecute." If we had set that out clearly, that rule of engagement, I think that there would have been a possibility to say what you just did could be categorized as a suspected homicide. We investigate homicides on our streets. Now, my understanding, again, this is where I don't want to speculate. My understanding is the Fed said this all occurred during a federal ICE enforcement action, which meant the activities were under the purview of the federal enforcement agency, and therefore the investigation should be done by federal authorities. They can argue that. I would argue you crossed over your jurisdiction. You went beyond your jurisdiction. You went into our territory. An incident has occurred that took the life of an individual. We have authority to investigate. We have an obligation to investigate. Again, if we had set the terms of engagement, it might have been easier for us to be able to say, we're investigating independently of what you're doing. That's a tough one there, because the federal government has a great deal of power. And if you don't set the rules of engagement, you run into these circumstances. But having been there, done those kinds of things, it helps to have that experience to know how to treat these things and how to move, how to counterpunch before you get punched.